Welcome everybody.
Welcome everybody, all our millions of listeners. Welcome.
Yay, we're for some reason last episode we got quite a few more listeners for some reason. I'm not really sure
Yes.
why.
Last episode blew up. I feel like it was the title. Like people like companies making a lot of money.
I
Uh,
guess so. Yeah,
if
good
you
topic.
haven't listened to the last episode, check it out.
So do you want to start off with the first topic that we had, Sarah?
Yeah. So I thought we would talk a little bit about the election, not like the news out there of like who's gonna win or like, what happens if Trump wins or what happens if Harris wins.
Yeah,
But a little bit about, how founders should be thinking about timing things with the election timing and like what
right.
they need to look out for, especially if you are raising around, planning big press.
Yeah.
Because I do think from that perspective, it's really relevant. I think like a lot of people are like, well, what happens if so and so wins? What happens to my business? But I think just from like really tactically, like the
Right.
election is next week. And I want to make sure that like people don't make some of the mistakes that are really obvious if you are not but like a lot of founders are heads down on their own business right now and might not be
Yep.
thinking about what you need to be thinking about as far as timing.
So what kind of things do you think so should you be fundraising, for example? So it's a good time to be fundraising.
Yeah, so I think, like, for the next week and then potentially even after, you need to be really careful about going out to market if there is, like, civil unrest. So I think
Right.
if we elect a new president and the results are clear and, like, we're moving forward and everything is, like, good to go, then I think things can resume pretty much right after the election. Like, I would give it a day or 2 for people to,
Hmm.
like, calm down with all the election excitement, but then I think news cycle's over, like, go on with your fundraise, we've adjusted, we're good to go, and I think that's the likely scenario and also, like, the one I hope for. Like, I hope
Yeah.
it's just a peaceful transition from
Right.
Biden to whoever the next president is, and we can just
Right.
move on and plan for that in January. But I think if there is a lot of drama, founders should be prepared,
Yeah.
because what's going to happen is we're going into the holidays. And so if there's a ton of drama around the election results, um, I think you need to be really careful about going out and fundraising or doing a big press announcement really through the end of the year, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because we're going into Thanksgiving and then we know that everything shuts down in December. And so, like, unfortunately, we might like almost close off the window for the rest of the year. And I would just urge founders to like have a contingency plan if that happens and don't put yourself in the middle of a bunch of drama and like try to squeeze through your fundraiser, your press announcement when you might have a lot more success kind of in January when things are a lot calmer, hopefully.
Yeah, I kind of take for like seed rounds. I think right now it seems pretty hot, especially in certain categories. I would probably say continue on with that. I'm not sure how
If you've
much.
started something, you should continue on. Like, you should
Yeah,
not pause.
yeah,
If you haven't gone out yet, I think, or you haven't announced your big press thing, like maybe you completed a fundraise and you're ready to announce it,
right.
I would probably not do it right this second
Yeah,
because I think there's just so much noise right now, you're gonna get buried. Um,
you are.
Also, like, I think a lot of people don't realize this, but Halloween, like on Winnie, we see our traffic just tank on Halloween day. Like,
Right.
no one uses Winnie. And there's also a little bit of a hangover effect the next day. And I think because everyone who is a parent is incredibly, incredibly busy with Halloween. You have to go to like your school costume party. You have to like finish up work early to take the kids out trick or treating. It is like an exhausting day. And so you should think of that too. Like if you're going out and fundraising, like people kind of have the 31st and then maybe even like a hangover effect on Friday the 1st, like kind of blocked off. So yeah, this advice does not apply though if you're already in market, you've already kicked off your process, or you
Yeah.
already have like some announcement that is out there, like, with a reporter. Like, obviously, you can't stop what's already going. You just gotta power through it. But if you haven't, I would just really caution that, like, this week, we're about to be dead, and then next week is the election, and then ideally, the week after, you are good to go, but I would just say, like, keep an eye out there. If there's some
Right.
crazy stuff going on, uh, a lot of drama, you may wanna wait.
Yeah, and also if you have some bad press you wanna bury, might be a good time
That's a good point too.
for
Like,
that.
if, you know, you wanna make an announcement about a layoff, but you don't want it to be a major
Mhm.
announcement, or you wanna do a layoff, you wanna wind down your business, I mean, all kinds of things, shut down a portion of the business that isn't working out and pivot to the thing that's working, like,
Yeah,
this is this is your window, go for it, do all kind and also keep a lookout because I bet companies are doing that right now, maybe even big ones that you rely on are,
definitely
like,
big ones will be. Yeah, this
winding
sound
down a portion of the business that you
yeah,
were, like, using and
yeah, yeah. No, no, all good things, but yeah, definitely gonna be pretty tight up until the new year, I guess, which is kinda crazy. But it always happens. Next topic that I had on here. So this is kind of following with the big Tesla announcement of their new ride-hailing vehicle they unveiled at their event. And Ark, who's I think they're still a major investor in Tesla. They're a hedge fund backed by and Kathy Wood's the head of that. They had some analysis that basically said that they see that the potential of the electric car market that's going to be fully autonomous is potentially going to be an $11 trillion revenue opportunity. And all this kind of just go through some stats right now that they put in their investor notes. So right now, so this is from Tesla. Tesla estimates at scale it'll cost between 30 cents to 40 cents per mile to actually operate these cars. And that's also with all the maintenance and the electricity and all of that. While current ride hailing costs, so this will be Uber or Lyft, they cost $2 per mile. And then if you own your own car and you have to do maintenance and gas, or I'm not sure what combination of that is electricity, it's 70 cents per mile. But essentially, that this whole and I well, I'd look at it as the lens of this is a whole new industry. Who knows what will actually who will be the winner? But like this just shows you the potential of like reducing cost, and this is through artificial intelligence, right? And also a completely new way to create cars, electric cars versus gas powered cars, which actually have a lot less maintenance, has the potential to have people not even own a car potentially. Like if and I'll ask you this, Sarah, if you're paying right now to 70 cents per mile and you can like reliably get around for somewhere that's going to be half that, would you consider not having a car to commute
So
potentially?
I am so bullish on self-driving cars. I think it's impossible not to be bullish after riding in a Waymo.
Yeah,
Like everyone I know, even the biggest doubters, like if they've taken a ride and they've experienced it for themselves, you're just like, this is the future. I'm living in the future.
right,
So yeah, and then like I was just thinking like why do I feel like it's the future so much? And like I'm just thinking about every day I commute to take my kids to school and back from
right,
take
right,
work.
right.
And like, well, couldn't I use an Uber for that today? Well, I guess technically I could
Mhm.
and maybe get some work done, but Uber rides are not the same. Like, the
Right, right,
experiment is
right.
completely different. I was just watching there was an amazing SNL skit, like, the Uber game show on SNL, and it's, like, literally that, like, you get a driver who's, like, has the most, like, crazy views, and you just
Yeah,
have to sit there and be like, "Yes, you're right,"
right.
because you don't wanna get killed,
Yeah,
and you don't want them to get upset, so you're just like, "Yep, I agree with you 100%."
right.
On this insane view that you have. You have to talk to them and you have to deal with their crappy driving and, like, you do it because it's still super convenient and awesome,
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't take my kids in that to school every day, but I
Right,
could conceivably take them in a electric self-driving car every day
right.
and sit with them. I probably wouldn't send them on their own, but I would sit with them. I would, like, take a work call while they were, like, doing their iPads, and, like,
Yeah.
it would be a super enjoyable experience. Like, I could totally see replacing my, like, daily drive with all the kids in the car with, like, a self-driving vehicle that just pulled up, we got in, and we did our thing in the
Yeah.
car, and then dropped them off, and I rode home. So, like, yeah.
I love this example and even just kind of taking it out of just like, oh, self-driving car, electric cars are going to be like the future of like how you get around. But even taking it a step further as far as like how quickly technology is moving, and you could throw in AI, but also it's been a combination of like the internet and mobile and everything's added on to it. But like the rate of change of these like massive moves just continuing to get shorter. So you're thinking about like car ownership potentially could go away because of all of the advancements in computer vision, in all of this artificial intelligence, in the actual battery modifications, and also networking that you have to have, and all those things. And it's going to potentially disrupt I don't know how big the car market is. Obviously, it's going to be bigger than $11 trillion. But I think that we're at like a really exciting point in time that like through, I look at like in my career, we've seen like everybody go on to like the internet, and then mobile was a big thing, and you had like social networks taking over and all of this. But I think that there's going to be continuously um, completely like old industries that are going to be disrupted by technology in ways that ultimately will potentially unlock even greater value. So what does this mean? Maybe people are going to like you don't have a car and you're able to take that trip because you're able to work the entire time and you're able to get around more or something like that. There's going to be a lot more examples like that. But I don't think that people realize how quickly technology really is like moving. And there's going to be many more examples. And you could just look at AI. Like, is Google going to actually get like their fundamental business model? Is that going to get disrupted? I personally use Anthropic to do a lot of my searches. That's kind of, or Perplexity to do. That's my go-to right now. And I know Google obviously has Gemini and everything like that. But like, I think that there's going to be continuously new disruptors. And I don't know. It's to me, it's kind of like this is why we do what we do. We are in startups, and this is a really
Yeah.
exciting time to be kind of alive and seeing all this stuff
I mean, if
happen.
I were gonna size the self-driving car, like that electric ride-hailing self-driving car market, like, I think initially it just expands the market for Uber and Lyft. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think it initially replaces car ownership,
No.
because I think there's a lot of reasons for car ownership that go beyond just, like, the ride hailing. Like, I
Right.
think this makes the
Right.
ride hailing experience better enough that you will do it more. So, I would size it based on, like, well, how much more based on the size of the market today. But I think ride
Right.
hailing is the market it initially disrupts first,
Yes.
and then you start to think about, like, the incremental car. Like, for example, we own 2 cars in
Yeah.
our family. Like,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
we then only
Yeah.
need 1, but we still need a car, um, because there's still enough use cases for a car. I mean, I freaking work from the back of my minivan, like, once a week at soccer practice, like, as my office, so I can't disrupt that quite yet. And it, like, literally the amount of stuff in my car, it's like a mobile home
Right.
essentially for us.
Right.
With kids. So I don't think, like, families yet are gonna, like, do without any car, but maybe you need fewer. Like, maybe you don't need one for you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
one for your spouse, and another one for, like, your au pair or whatever. Like,
Right.
maybe you can go down
Right.
to fewer. Um, but yeah, I probably wouldn't size it initially as, like, displacing car ownership, but hopefully we can get, like, a self-driving personal vehicle as well. I know Tesla has a lot of that technology. It's not you're not supposed to be fully autonomous when you're sitting in the seat,
Right.
but I do know people that use it that way.
Yeah. Well, and also in
Crazy
this market,
person.
there's already so many other competitors. You have Waymo, you have Cruise, you have Zoox. Like, there's
Yeah.
probably a few other ones. So who knows who's going to actually win? But like, this is going to happen. And yeah, like
Yeah.
you're not going to get rid like the $11 trillion opportunity that's going to be over decades. That's not. It's going to happen very gradually. But then but then it'll be all of a sudden, just kind of how in San Francisco now, like everybody takes Waymos and nobody, like, I don't know. Do you ever take an Uber or Lyft anymore?
Well, yeah, because I'm not in the city, so, like, we
Oh,
don't
right.
we don't
But
have
when you are in the city, would you take an Uber or Lyft?
well, most of the time I'm commuting into the city or
Got it.
commuting out of the city, so I do need to take Uber and Lyft, and there's, like, only a few times I have access to, like, "Oh, I'm now going to my next city destination."
Yeah.
Unfortunate, reality of living in the burbs is you just don't get around the city intercity that, like, you're going into and out of. But hopefully soon. I see the Waymos driving around my neighborhood, like, they're obviously testing them to be
Right.
here, but
Right.
not yet.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as you lower the price and things and also even make the experience better. Like you said, like it's a much better experience than
Yeah.
actually having a driver in the car yourself. Like it just changes the potential use cases that you're gonna have.
So you
Another
also said, Google maybe going away. Have you played
yeah,
with Google's Notebook LM? Like, it is unreal.
I have not yet.
Oh my
Can you
god. Okay,
explain to everybody what it
so
does.
it's not like, uh it's not Google, like, it's not another search tool, it's not ChatGPT. It is, like, basically a way to organize it's built from Gemini, but it's a totally different kind of product. It's a way to organize data. But, like, one thing I did was I actually fed in like, so you can feed into Notebook LM, like, really dense information. Like, I fed in a company's IPO filing. I would never read an
Awesome.
IPO filing because it's so incredibly boring. Um, but you can give
I
it
actually
something
I love reading them in
I
fact.
know, sometimes I do, but, like, you would, like you kinda need to, like, be in that mode, but I
Yeah,
fed it in, and then you can even turn it into a podcast with
right.
a male and female host,
Yeah,
just like us, and they make it entertaining. So they, like, have a podcast about the IPO filing, and you can, like, give it, like you can tell it, like, make the podcast, like, in a critical way or just, like, I just had it make a podcast out of it. And so like, feeds it to you in, like, an interactive way. You're listening to a
that's very
podcast about
cool.
the IPO filing, and, like, "Here's the things about the company that are really exciting." "Oh, what is it, Kevin?" "Oh, Sarah, and here's this." Like, it was so entertaining. Never listened to an IPO filing as a podcast before, but you could imagine doing this with, like, a really long board deck you have to review, you're
Yeah,
a investor in a company. Um, you can just give it something that would otherwise you would never wanna go through, a study about something that's super
right.
boring.
Right.
Have it make it interesting for you, but people are using it for, like, all sorts of, like, just organizing a lot of data that's completely unstructured.
Yes.
Um, and I mean, I need to play around with it more, but I was, like, kinda blown away already with, like, just giving it a couple documents and having it actually make it interesting and organized for me.
Yeah, and that actually, was one of the things that I wanted to bring up as a topic. So, Sam Lesson, VC, he also worked at Facebook before. He had a tweet here. He thinks that structured CMR companies are going to be in trouble because now you could feed like something like a notebook LM a bunch of unstructured data. So, in this blog post that he wrote, he basically fed it all of his emails for the last 10 years. And then he was able to just ask a bunch of like questions. So you can imagine if you're going to use this as like a CRM, you'd be like, how do I know this person? When's the last time I met them? How did they seem? Like, did they, even things to be like, if you're investors, like, were they quick to reply or how, I don't know, you can just imagine all the different things
Yeah.
and then just like, uh, taking all of that data, putting it into a computer, and then you being able to just sift out anything,
Yeah.
what is that gonna unlock? And I'd say, like, our audience obviously are founders, like, for you, what kind of thing I'm just trying to even just think of things that you could actually do. Like I've been using a lot of the other LLMs for just like kind of like just like, well, what was the revenue or what was the gross profit of this company, blah, 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 just kind of like easy search things. But like, I haven't really even kind of thought about a lot of this stuff. But like, I don't know, what are some like ideas you think that people on a day to day basis could be using stuff like this for
Well, I think
outside of
just
creating a podcast
yeah, I
about
mean, I think
a
initially, like, you should use it to be like, as a founder, one of the most challenging things is, like, looking up outside of your
yeah,
day-to-day fires that you're fighting and, like, doing things as basic as, like, being prepared for a meeting with a potential partner or a VC or
right,
whoever, and, like, I would use this, like, set aside, give yourself, like, 30 minutes before your next VC pitch, like, feed it all the data about that investor, everything they've written about, everything published about them on the internet, and, you know, search YouTube for, like, their latest panels they appeared on or whatever, and, like, make yourself sound a little bit more intelligent before
yeah,
meeting with them, and,
yeah,
like, I think that would be, like, at the basic level, how I'm trying to use Notebook LM to start. I had, like, a important meeting with a customer yesterday.
yeah,
I, you know, fed it some information, so I didn't come completely unprepared of, like, what is happening with that
right,
customer.
right,
She sounded intelligent about what they're up to and what the
yeah,
public stuff is on their business. So, obviously, I could have done that before, but it just would have taken me too much time, and I
right,
think as founders, we're overloaded, and so
yeah,
I would just use it as, like, your s to start, like, before you can think of any tricky use case, like, feeding it that unstructured data,
right,
coming in a little more prepared as if you had, like, a chief of staff or executive assistant getting you ready for this stuff,
right.
um, so that you show up to things kind of or, you know, feed it information on your competitors or the public companies in your space just so you're a little more informed, without needing, like, you know, your research assistant to do
Yeah.
for you.
I really wish that a lot of this other stuff would be more crawlable with like even like your login. So I can imagine something like I don't believe these LLMs like they can't crawl like LinkedIn and stuff like that, right? Or like
So,
Crunchbase
I think with
or
Notebook LM, like, you have to give
you
it
give it everything.
the info
Yeah.
I mean, at least that's how I did it. I actually just this is, like, gonna sound super dumb,
Yeah.
but I just covered this tool. Um, Google has, like,
Yeah.
a data set search called datasetsearch.research.com.
Yeah.
Um, so if you want data around a particular topic or you wanna look up a study on something or, like, data on your industry,
Yeah.
it's actually better than searching on just regular Google because you actually get, like, this study or, like, the published formatted data, like a really large CSV file, and you can, like, specify what file type you want,
Right.
which is, like, you know, raw data. How interesting is that? But now with Notebook LM, like,
Right.
you
Right.
can actually take that, interpret it, um, and then use it for, you know, actually being more knowledgeable about something.
Yeah, no, there's so many different use cases. Are you guys finding that you're pushing off certain hires because you're getting more leverage with a lot of these different AI tools?
Kind of we actually have made our first hires in we've been so
Yeah,
uh strict about not hiring,
right,
like
right.
trying to be super lean,
Focus on
being
profitability.
profitable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we actually made a few hires recently, and we have a a rec out for another one because I feel like we're finally able to kind of see the impact of some
Uh,
of the hires, and also they have more leverage now, I think, with some of these tools than they ever had before.
Right,
Because it's not like the tools alone, they're out there, but you have to take advantage of them and you have to
right.
be smart about how to use them.
Yes,
Um, and so we're finally like able to kind of grow on the sales side and the success side because we have like the tools coupled with like a couple internal tools that we built that just give these folks so much more leverage. It was so basic before, but like we didn't
yeah,
even have enough, uh, like even though we have tons of leads for our salespeople to call, like,
right,
clearly, they're all
right.
using our free Winnie product.
Yeah,
All the childcare providers are on Winnie.
yeah,
It was like too hard for non-technical salespeople to like figure out who to call.
Got it.
Even though I know who they should be calling and I can pull up a query with the data, they
Yeah.
like couldn't query our data properly. And so they were spending their cycles calling people who were not actively using our free product. Now it's like we have built a bunch of internal tools. We have a lot more like tools available at their disposal. We've kind of done the foundational stuff so that we know when we hire another salesperson, they're focused on the right leads. Like
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
as basic as that wasn't in place, so it didn't make sense to hire.
I think that I think here is another example where startups have such a huge advantage over the incumbents. Like I can only imagine like you're a Google or Facebook or name your favorite large tech company, and you're really just most likely trying to keep your job and just like have like a healthy, you're keeping your nice like half
Yeah.
$1 million if you're an engineer paycheck, and you're probably not like you're not really incentivized to like use the latest and greatest tools, nor can you probably like incorporate a lot of that stuff into your workflow because things are kind of the way they are. But like a huge benefit of a startup is like you could literally just like introduce a completely new workflow, and that's what I'm seeing as well. Like we're definitely you could get so much more done with a much smaller team than you ever could before. And I think that's really important when you're thinking about finding like product market fit. So like I think a general advice for anybody that's starting at a company is be as small, be as lean as you possibly can be, spend as little money as you possibly can be until you find product market fit. And then do whatever you can to take advantage of that opportunity. And I think that I think you're going to see more and more of these larger incumbents get disrupted by these super small, lean companies. I'll use like the industry that I'm really familiar with, which is like CPG companies. So you see this in just like how Shopify is kind of a great like lead indicator, like how Shopify continues to grow, and that's basically like these smaller brands that are basically disrupting the traditional CPG companies, and they're doing that and starting to sell online, but then they're also getting in big box retailers, so they're picking off like the crafts of the world and all of that, and you're just able to like with a team of one or two people you're able to do so much more than you ever could before. And so all of the kind of advantages of the incumbents that they had before are completely going away. And it's going to happen the same way in technology and all of this and the way people just think and all of that. So I think it's such a huge advantage. And you as a founder need to really like encourage your team to like look up all the tools and examples that we gave today and just be thirsty for all this stuff because that's a massive advantage that you have that you could go and change. Maybe you could change it whole, the entire way that your company is doing something or some way that like you just could never do that at a large company because they're stuck in the ways. And I think it's just a huge advantage. And then I think that
Yeah.
you're
And the incentives are wrong, right? Like at a large company, if you're a
totally
manager, your incentive is
yes,
to grow your team, get more power and influence. So you're always advocating for more people.
right,
I need more people. I need a bigger budget for more people. And
right,
then if you're an individual contributor and you just happen upon an AI tool or way of doing things that makes your job easier, like I would just use it. Your incentive is to then, okay, make your job easier and make yourself better,
yeah,
but not necessarily get everyone else using it.
yeah, yeah,
And so like I just think the incentives, like if you're a content creator, like you're just gonna start using these tools. You're not gonna necessarily tell your manager that your job can be completely automated.
right, right.
You're not that's not your incentive here. Or you're not gonna tell them you're spending like, only an hour a week doing your job. And your manager's not really too motivated to figure that out because they want to hire more of you and grow the team.
Yeah,
I just think like, yeah, hopefully good people at these companies would still do the right thing, but I think startups are so much more the whole DNA is like you're so
yeah.
much more motivated to figure out how to do more with less.
Well, I've never worked. I've worked for massive companies that have so much bureaucracy, but you worked for a pretty big tech company, Twitter. How many people were there when you were there? A few thousand.
So when I started, it was around 200 people, and when I ended, it was, a couple thousand people, and the company had IPO'd and
I had a couple
looking through.
thousand people. What was like the incentive structure look like? Do you think people were just trying to like keep their job and protect the stuff and just get good performance reviews? Or do you think they were actually trying to make the company better?
Um, I think people were definitely trying to make the company better, but a lot of that was like you had to jockey for power
Right.
because without power and influence, like you just couldn't get anything across the finish line. I don't think it was because people were evil and bad. It was just like the
No.
incentive structure is
Right.
wrong at
Right.
large companies. And this is a challenge all large companies face. And so,
Right.
like, you just needed political capital to get your thing through. And so you ended up spending a lot of time and effort kind of creating that
Yeah.
rather than like actually figuring out how to build the right things for users,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right.
And this was true at Google too. I don't think it's unique to, I mean, some companies are certainly more dysfunctional than others, but I think it's just a challenge when you have teams and management and processes and ways you have to interact with other teams that like to drive something forward requires so much inertia. You need to have kind of political capital, you need to network, you need to do the right things to get something across the finish line. Um, and that's not necessarily aligned with like, how do we just make the business more efficient
Right.
by using AI tools?
Do you think this is where founder mode comes in? That you need somebody that can kind of cut through all the bullshit and bureaucracy in a company and actually be like, we're gonna get this shit done.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also, this is why it's so important for like, I think as a founder, as a leader in your organization to be kind of on the forefront of some of this
Yeah.
and realize that, the individual contributors in your organization may or may not be using some of these tools, but you have to be aware of what's out there and what's possible, and in some cases, potentially even mandate that things are done a certain way or that jobs are getting more efficient
Yeah.
with these tools. Because otherwise, I don't know, even at a startup, if everyone is necessarily incentivized to think about how to make their own job obsolete. Like, ideally,
No,
they
they're
are,
not.
because they'll
Yeah.
realize that if they make their own job obsolete, they can
The
do more
best
for the
people will.
company.
The best people will. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, I've been fortunate to, like, well, we are such a small team that, like, we're
Right.
just kind of forced to do that by nature,
Right.
make our jobs obsolete because
Right.
there's, like, 10 other jobs waiting for us.
Right.
But I don't know if startup is even every single person in every single startup is just by nature motivated to obsolete themselves if they don't feel like they'll have another role in the organization.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a percentage of people that are like that, but there definitely are a lot of people that are just kind of happy, just collecting the paycheck and having like a great life, and they're not really thinking what's best for the company. Which in it's it it I know there's probably a lot of people that well there wasn't a maybe like well I don't really give a shit. This is my life, so why would I care about the company? But actually, like you cared about the company is in turn going to actually make your life better because you're probably going to get promoted and take on more things, which is going to hopefully make your life better and all that
Yeah.
thing. So it actually is in your best interest to do what's best for the company, even if it is hard. It's like they're the highest performer. So people that can, I know that when that whole founder mode essay came out, there was a lot of people like, well, you don't need to be the founder. There's just kind of you could be a really great manager, and if you're able to just like operate in this founder mode, which is like go into the details and like actually just get shit done. Like that's what the company actually needs versus people that are just kind of like really great at managing up and just kind of like getting to this project finished and just okay, but not actually like like look like what Google is done. Like I don't know if you saw that interview with Eric Schmidt, but he basically said, I think it was at Stanford, he gave this, and he basically said that Google is losing on the AI race because they're only like work for uh, 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 days a week and oh, my videos off for a second here. But he said that they're only working like 4 days a week and only a percentage of time on these like really meaningful projects, and then you have all these other startups that are like, this is all we do, and like if we don't do this, and like this is how companies get disrupted. So it's anyways. If you're a founder, you should encourage your entire team to take up all this stuff. If you're a startup employee, you should do this.
My friend Janen Kamdar, who was hired as the chief product officer at Gather. Gather is a startup that had been around, I think, for a few years before they hired him. They actually just announced they named him a founder.
Oh,
And I
wow.
thought that was kind of amazing. I mean, he is an amazing guy. He was actually my boss at Twitter for a period of time. And anyone who's worked with Janen knows how amazing and awesome he is. But like, I think that's an example that like you can come in as just a leader in the organization and you can literally do founder mode. You can
Right.
change the company and the DNA and the trajectory. In this case, like I think he really changed the trajectory of the business so much that they felt like they had refounded the company after hiring him
That's
and
awesome.
named him a founder. And so like you shouldn't be limited by whether your title is founder or not to do founder mode.
Totally.
And I think it's worth every executive really thinking about like what is best for the business? How do I get in the details when it matters? I shouldn't, I should take everything from first principles. I shouldn't necessarily think I can't change something because this is the way it's always been. And hey, a few years even after the company was founded, you can be named a founder too.
That's awesome. That sounds really cool. Well, why don't we end it on there? My camera stopped working for some reason, so it's probably good.
Everyone's just looking at me anyway.
Well, I edit this, so I can
Yeah.
change that.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Um,
Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you next time. See you, Sarah.
and don't forget to vote.
And vote. Yes.
Yep.
All
Vote.
right.
Vote early, vote often.
Bye.
Bye.